The trial against George Zimmerman is set to begin in just a few weeks, but before testimony can begin, both sides will have to agree on a jury. News 13's Kristen Kane recently sat down and went in depth with our legal analyst, NeJame, to discuss what goes into picking those men and women who will decide Zimmerman's fate.
We are less than 2 months away from the start of the George Zimmerman trial. He is the man charged with murdering Trayvon Martin back in February of 2012 in Sanford, and Zimmerman is claiming it was self-defense. Joining us today with some new details in the case is News 13 legal analyst NeJame. Mark, what can you tell us? What about these new developments in the case and the upcoming trial set to begin in June?
Well, they're getting ready. With a couple hundred witnesses already there, you can expect both sides to be starting to prep their witnesses and starting to lay out their trial strategies. It's an exhaustive process, without question. So you're going to have to figure out which witnesses you're actually going to use and which timeline you're going to be creating, because you have a story to tell. You can fully expect that Zimmerman will be taking the stand. It's possible that he won't. Many times in criminal trials, defendants don't. In this case, it's more than likely that he will. I think that was part of the strategy as to why they stood down on the stand your ground hearing. They decided not to because he would have been exposed to cross-examination on the heels and on the eve of the trial 3 weeks later. So I think that that's kind of a tell that we're going to see Zimmerman take the stand.
With a story to tell and so many witnesses, how long do you expect this trial to last?
The shortest you can expect is a couple of weeks, more likely closer to a month, but 2 to 4 weeks, and it could last longer. Depends on how many witnesses and how long the story takes to tell. A lot of this case is going to be forensics. We're seeing a lot of witnesses coming in, but forensics are in large part going to tell the tale of this story. Sadly, Trayvon is not here to tell his side of the story. Zimmerman's got a story to tell, but we've somewhat heard it. And so after that, it's going to be the forensic evidence that comes in. The tapes, the blood spatter, the gunshot wounds, the gunpowder on the shirt, the voices, all those things are going to be pieced together. Each side's going to use it to their advantage. But at the end of the day, I think you're going to see this is going to be largely a forensic case.
Talking about both sides now and all of the attorneys, what are they doing right now in the weeks just before the trial? It's set to start on June 10th, so they don't have much time.
No, it's really going into high gear. You can be expecting them to be working morning, noon, and night through the weekends and everything else. This is an amazing event to put together a case like that, and it's truly exhausting. So I think you're just going to see strategies being laid out. I think you're going to see a lot of motions in limine. Motion in limines are when one side or the other files a motion claiming that the probative value is outweighed by the prejudicial value, and both sides would claim there's a lot of prejudice if one side or the other lets in certain evidence. And I think right now you're seeing it as it relates to the civil lawsuit that was filed by Trayvon's family. The defense is attempting to disclose the terms of that agreement, claiming that there's some sort of bias that might attach to the parents concerning getting a prosecution, a conviction at prosecution. So all these are positions that they are going to be taking. We're going to see a lot more back and forth in the next 2 months.
We've talked about this in past weeks, but it's super important. Finding jurors that don't already have an opinion. The stories all over the news, newspapers, on your phone. You can't get away from it. How are they going to find people who just don't have an opinion?
Well, you can have an opinion. You just can't have an opinion that prevents you from rendering an unbiased verdict. So finding that is going to be difficult, but it's going to be done. In every case in American history, we've been able to find a jury. We'll find one here. Sometimes it frightens one, though, that how informed of a juror are you going to get if they, in fact, know nothing about a case such as this? But, now we've got a case in Boston, and imagine the publicity that attaches to that. And if he ends up going to trial, they'll still find a jury. It's going to be hard, but they will find a jury. There are people who remain uninformed or are able to stay neutral until all the evidence is in. We'll find one here.
All right. It's going to be so interesting to see what happens. All right. News 13 legal analyst NeJame. Thanks, Mark.